Hello everyone. It's a beautiful Wednesday here in Sydney. We're here to talk about New South Wales changes to their nomination process. So this live was going to happen yesterday. We had to change it to today. We hope that's okay. We're gonna save it on our feed anyway. So if you have to leave right in the middle of it, or if you couldn't make it, you might be watching this later when we save on our feed. So this will be our last live for 2022. We're gonna close for the Christmas break on Friday, and we'll be back in 2023 full steam on the 3rd of January. So we hope to keep seeing you on our lives, webinars, and hearing your feedback on our blog posts and everything, all the content we put out there. So I'm just giving a couple more minutes to people to join us, and we're going to be talking about these changes. The reason why we decided to do this live, we put a blog post about it, we sent a newsletter, we also put it on our feed, but we received a lot of questions from many people who were confused about these changes and how they affected them. Again, every time there's changes in legislation, is never something straightforward. Migration legislation is very complex, it's very convoluted, and that's one of the reasons we're here for, to make this easier to understand for you. We have been known for making it simple to understand. That's one of our missions as a business. We want to get factual, accurate information out there for you, and also information that's easy to understand. We don't speak legalese as we make fun of. We don't use many complex legal terms. We try to make this in plain English for you. Because if you're out there looking to apply for a visa, it can be very daunting, confusing, and complex. And the Department of Home Affairs and a lot of legal firms out there don't make it easier for you. But that's mission number 2, is to make it easy for our audience, our followers, and also our clients, because mission number 1 is to get factual, accurate, easy to understand information out there for you. Mission number 2 is to make it easy, not just for our audience and our followers, but for our clients. So the core services of our business is to, 1, assess if you qualify for a visa, which is another very important job we have. Sometimes people think they qualify for a visa and they don't, or that's not the best visa for them. They might have a better option. And sometimes people don't know they qualify for certain visas, and we show them a different way. And that's one of the most rewarding parts of our job, which is to find a solution for you that someone else hasn't found yet. That is only second to when we call someone and tell them their visa was approved. That's another very rewarding part of our job. So today we're here to try to make it simple to understand what has happened with New South Wales. So let's start with the basics. We have 3 general skilled migration visas that from which 2 are permanent and 1 is temporary. So we have Subclass 189, which is the independent skilled permanent visa. And that is a visa where we only have to deal with the Department of Immigration. So the department is a body at federal level. So there's migration requirements from the Department of Home Affairs. And if you want to get that visa, you need to meet those requirements. The other permanent visa is Subclass 190, which is called nominated, skill nominated visa. It is also a permanent visa, but not only we need to meet the requirements of the federal government, being a nominated visa, you need to be nominated by a state or territory government agency in Australia. So that means there's a second body that will create requirements to nominate you. And the third visa is the Subclass 491 Regional Provisional Skilled Visa. And we have a family-sponsored stream where we only deal with the Department of Immigration at federal level, but we also have a state or territory nominated stream. Now, what New South Wales did was when you're looking at these visas that require state nomination, New South Wales had their requirements for this financial year. They normally publish their requirements after they are allocated a certain number of visas to be granted. So the federal government says, states and territories, you're going to be able to grant X amount of visas in this financial year. So then the state and territory government agencies sit down and decide, okay, which occupations do we need the most in our state? Do we need people who have lots of work experience? Are we a popular state? Are we going to make this easy because no one's interested in migrating here? Or are we going to make this harder because there's a lot of people applying? So these are the conversations that happen in the beginning of the financial year. So when the financial year started, New South Wales made it a bit hard for someone to meet their requirements because they are one of the most popular states when it comes to migrants seeking to settle, if not the most popular state. So for years now, they have been strict with their requirements and saying, we are going to choose who we want to nominate. So you can make an expression of interest. You can say, here I am, New South Wales, these are my skills, my profile, and they may or may not choose you to apply for this visa. I mean, to actually apply for the nomination. And without the nomination, you cannot apply for the visa. So they have their own invitation rounds. They go into skill select in a frequent basis, and then they choose people that can then apply for state nomination. If approved, they can apply for subclass 190 or 491 regional and nominated visas. So another financial year started, and New South Wales was, as usual, raising the bar. They determined that not only they wanted people to be living in New South Wales or be completely located overseas, but certain occupations had an extra requirement of work experience. So on top of everything the federal government requires, New South Wales was saying, okay, if you're an accountant, you need to have 3 years work experience. If you're a restaurant manager, you need to have 2 years work experience. And that varied from occupation to occupation. Some occupations didn't have an extra requirement, but most did. Not only that, the federal government, all these GSM, General Skilled Migration Visas, they are what we call points tested. So there is a points test, and the minimum to be invited to apply is 65. Your score needs to be 65. New South Wales, however, also determined that people had to have higher scores. Not everyone, but a lot of the occupations in their list, people were being required to score much higher points. For example, cafe manager, restaurant manager was 85 points. I think accountants had to score 100. I think I saw some occupations where the minimum score was 110. So it was, the bar was really high. So a lot of our clients wanted to express interest with New South Wales, but we knew that they didn't have the minimum score or they didn't have the minimum years of work experience, so we knew they were not going to be invited. A couple of weeks ago, to our surprise, New South Wales completely removed these extra requirements. So now they require people to be living in New South Wales for at least 3 months or be living outside of Australia for at least 3 months and to have an occupation in their skills occupation list. There's no more extra years of work experience. There's no more higher points tests that need to be met. So a lot of people contacted us when they heard the news and said, Wow. So does that mean that I don't need to have any work experience to apply for this visa now? Does it mean that there's no more points test? And the answer to that is no. Remember when I explained the federal government requirements for each one of those three visas remains. That hasn't changed. Now, what has been removed were the extra requirements from New South Wales. So for example, if you're looking at applying for any one of the GSM visas, any one of the points tested visas, at federal level, nothing has changed. What are the steps? You need to identify if you have an occupation in one of the lists. Each visa has a different list, but they're all combined in one legal document. After you identify your occupation, you need to check with your skills assessment authority if you meet the requirements to be assessed in your occupation. So for example, if you're an engineer, you need to find out if you meet the requirements for the professional body for engineers here in Australia, which is Engineers Australia, the Institute of Engineers Australia. Their requirements, for example, is that you must have a bachelor degree in engineering and at least competent English, which is a score of 6 in each component of the IELTS exam, for example. So, in theory, an engineer doesn't need work experience to get a skills assessment, but this may be a problem when you move to the next stage, which is the points test. So recapping, identify your occupation, identify if you meet the skills assessment authority requirements, and number 3, check if you can score at least 65 points in a points test. Now, work experience can lead you to claim a lot of points. So if you don't have work experience, you may not score enough, but some people still can. Now, the next stage, if we're talking about a state-nominated visa, is to get state nomination. So that's when New South Wales, for example, comes in. If you're seeking nomination with this state, then you need to meet their requirements. What has changed is the New South Wales state requirements. Nothing else changed. So some occupations, so New South Wales says, no, you're an engineer, you don't need to show that you have 3 years of work experience. It might be that maybe a recent engineering graduate could meet all the requirements now. But again, each case is a different case. Now, there are some occupations where you must have work experience to obtain your skills assessment. So even though New South Wales might have removed the requirement for extra work experience, if your skills assessment authority still wants work experience, then you need to meet that requirement, because those federal government requirements have not changed. So for example, if you're an IT professional, if you're a software developer, or if you are a software engineer, a computer networks and systems engineer, you need to identify if your occupation is on any lists, then get a skills assessment with another body called Australian Computer Society. And the Australian Computer Society requires work experience. So doesn't matter if New South Wales is saying you don't need extra years of work experience, you're going to have work experience to get your skills assessment. So identify your occupation, get a skills assessment, score 65 on the points test, and then get state nomination. Then you look at New South Wales and their requirements to nominate you. So that's where people got a bit lost. They thought, oh, I don't need any work experience for any occupations, and I don't need to score anything on the points test. No, this hasn't changed. What changed was the requirements for New South Wales. All right. So again, I hope this has clarified many of the misunderstandings out there. We received a lot of inquiries. We hope that this year of 2022, we were able once more to bring you plain English migration information, accurate facts, straight from the source of solicitors and registered agents here at Bravo Migration. And we hope that we can continue to do so in 2023. As I said, this is our last live transmission for this year. We're going to close for a break. We take the opportunity to wish you a great break, great festive season, and we hope to see you next year again, and that you continue following our migration content, and that we can help you with your visa application. We also want to thank all your collaborators and clients this year, people who trusted us with their visa applications, and congratulate those who had it approved this year, and looking forward to getting more approvals for you all next year. Thank you so much for following us, for working with us, and I wish everyone a healthy, happy 2023. Thanks, guys.